home, and this is one area where this government has really let Australians down. Home ownership under this government has never been less affordable, Deputy Speaker. Let's look first of all at the deposit that's required. From the 1960s right through even to the 1990s, it took on average months or a small number of years to save for the average deposit for the average Australian home on an average Australian wage or salary. Now it is 12 years.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to support this motion on the importance of home ownership to Australians, which has been brought by the member for Groom, and I thank the member for bringing this motion to the House. Just by way of opening, Deputy Speaker, I've been present for the honourable member of Hasluck during her speech. It was interesting that she spent the first 2 minutes of her 5-minute allotted time not discussing the importance of home ownership, but instead talking about all the things that the coalition, allegedly or apparently, did or didn't do when they were in. I might just remind the member that this government, of which she is a part, has now been in for 2 years. Deputy Speaker, home ownership is deeply embedded in the Australian psyche. It's called the Great Australian Dream. The notion has been fundamental to the way our country has developed since Federation, a largely classless society built on egalitarian principles, built on the notion that most Australians are able to aspire and achieve home ownership. Australia's founders clearly believed that this should be a property-owning democracy. They came to this view because they knew that the line upon which division was most etched in society, particularly having regard to former British society, is the ownership of property. Therefore, everyone, they decided, needs to be given the chance to own the home in which they live, needs to be given the opportunity to be able to purchase their first home. And this is one area where this government has really let Australians down. Home ownership under this government has never been less affordable, Deputy Speaker. Let's look first of all at the deposit that's required. From the 1960s right through even to the 1990s, it took on average months or a small number of years to save for the average deposit for the average Australian home on an average Australian wage or salary. Now it is 12 years. To service a loan in Sydney, it now takes an income of over $280,000 per year. This is making home ownership absolutely impossible for Gen Z, absolutely impossible for millennials. And we can just look at the numbers. In the 1970s, the average age of first home buyers was 25 years. It's now 36 years. The seventh large lender in Australia to first home buyers is now the Bank of Mum and Dad, Deputy Speaker. This means that for the first time in Australia, we're approaching a position where whether or not you own a home will depend entirely, almost entirely, upon the circumstances of your birth. That is not the attitude, that is not the culture that has always been Australia, and it's untenable. So what do I say that the Albanese Labor government could be doing? It could first of all be taking some of the pressure off the demand side. That is, it could be reining in inflation, bringing back a sensible and sustainable immigration policy that links immigration to the existing housing and infrastructure we have here. At present, we have 4 immigrants coming in for every 1 dwelling being built in Australia. This is unplanned and unsustainable. We need immigrants in Australia. Contemporary Australia has been built on the back of immigration, but the policy that has been introduced by this government is unsustainable, and it is locking Australians out of the housing market. Housing supply is something that this government should be addressing. While largely the remit of state and local governments, federal government does have levers to assist with supply and could be further assisting first home buyers. It could be incentivising local and state governments to increase housing densities in line with existing infrastructure and transport hubs. There is plenty that the government could be doing and should be doing to increase supply. And I'll just turn briefly to mortgage stress, because the motion does refer to mortgage stress. We have now a large number of Australians, over 1.6 million, 31.4% of mortgage holders, Deputy Speaker, experiencing mortgage stress. This is linked directly to the 12 interest rate rises in a row we have seen under the Albanese Labor government. Again, interest rates, reining in inflation to control interest rates is something that this government could and should be doing through its fiscal policy. The Albanese Labor government is letting Australians down on home ownership and is letting Australians down on mortgage stress. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the motion be